And I originally came to this area because I was very interested in uh, old houses, historic architecture, and I was looking for an 18th century house that I could restore. And I had a lot of fun going around, all 2 hours drive from Washington, had a Mustang convertible, and with a couple of friends we'd have a picnic and look at an old house. It might be saw one that I liked very much, and it was on Swan Point, and it included the remnants of a farm, but it was the waterfront. It had about, I think, about 900 feet of waterfront right on the bay. And anyway, I looked at it. It had a lot of buildings, 5 farm buildings. It had been a much larger farm. And so I thought, well, this looks promising. And just as I stopped the car, this guy came out and said, "Get out of here." He said, "I bought this place." And so I was a fire there. And so turns out that the person who was in it had not bought it. He had an option, but he couldn't, after the fire, he couldn't live there. So he was getting out. I remember went out, and it looked just awful. It's Hodges Bar Farm, you may know it. The Dillinghams bought it from me, and they're still there. And one wing of it had been burned down, and there were burned toys and books and so on. And there was a hole in the roof. But I looked at it, and it had still quite a bit of the interior intact. And I thought, well, this I thought is restorable. My father was in the real estate business, and my brother had a construction company. So I was used to thinking sort of unconsciously about land possibilities, and knew something, not enough, about construction. My father had died, but my brother thought I was nuts, except he didn't approve of the fact that the farm was on the water. I decided to make a very low offer, and I did, and they said, if you will increase this by $1,000, I think they might accept. So I did, and they did accept. And I was the owner of a ruined 18th century house on Monday, and on Tuesday, the People's Bank lent me the whole amount of the purchase price, because they said, you will need your funds, your cash, to restore it, and that was certainly true. But anyway, that was the beginning of my time in Chestertown. So I moved out and I lived there, but I found that it was about a 25-minute drive from Chestertown, and that if I came home for dinner, I didn't feel like going back, so I missed lectures and concerts and so on. And if I stayed in town, the only real place for dinner at that time was Bud's, and they had good crabs and beer, but I got awfully tired of that. So in due course, I looked for an 18th century house in Chestertown, and I found one on Cannon Street. So I became a Chestertown resident, and I was also became the chairman of the economics department at the college. Well, I did my undergraduate work at Kenyon College, which was very small, but had a very good faculty, and that's what got me started in economics. And I was there, in World War II, at the beginning, until I went into the Army. First was here. It was in some ways very comparable to Kenyon. By that time, of course, Kenyon had admitted women. Washington was early at admitting women, but it was a small college, a small private college. with an interest in literary background particularly, and known locally but not terribly well known at that time, outside of, well, really Maryland, I think, and some of the alumni who'd gone to the big city. And more, Kenyon was the same way. They had about 2 or 3 years before I went, they'd had 3 major scandals. One, the Psi fraternity was found to have women living permanently in their house, and then the president of the college, known as Pops Pierce, he was no youngster, eloped with his secretary, and then the Bishop of Ohio had a country place right in little old Gambier, the little town, and he was a man of probably late 50s and a bachelor, and he had a heart attack and died in a local hospital, and his housekeeper ran through the hospital corridor screaming, "I love that man, but I killed him." But I really liked the community very much. I became, well, early on active in historical society and in, first St. Paul's Church and then Emmanuel, and other things, well, the Historical District Commission. So I really enjoyed the community and found it an interesting place to be. And I found interesting people here and interesting people on the faculty. One thing that seems to be happening is that now that there are retired people or planning to retire people who are moving into the area. And that has it maintains values. And they are, I think, many of them, a lot of them do more than play golf and bridge.